a vibe all the time. It's a vibe all the time. It's a vibe.
Hi YouTube, I am back. Please excuse me for not being so consistent with my material and my content, but here's a video. This is the present and we're back with it. My energy is on 10. I'm feeling good. It's a Saturday evening and I'm on my way to Topgolf. Please excuse me because I do have hiccups, but I hope it's going to the right places that I'm growing in. Whoa, what? All right, so now we're back with a video. This topic is going to be a little bit more of a touchy topic, but necessary, especially because, all right, putting out there. If you do not know, I have lost my mother at the age of 15, and a lot of people have known me to be really resilient from that trauma and just how I lived my life from the age of 15 years old to 26 years old, present tense now, and just ways that I've coped and how my life was pretty much growing up dealing with the loss of my mother specifically. So we're going to rewind back to the time that my mom actually found out that she was diagnosed with cancer. My mom had leukemia. That's what she passed away from. At the age of 19, I believe that's when she found out that she was sick. So she found out that she was sick because I believe there was a strong stench when she had her menstrual, and it was one of those all right, kind of let me at least go see what's going on because, the stench was not normal. So she went to the doctor, and I believe that's when she was told that she had the blood cancer leukemia. So my mom at the time, I guess leukemia or cancer wasn't looked at as, it was harsh. I don't even want to say the word harsh, but it was complex then. But I believe my mom just, it was kind of something she was able to cope with, she lived with. It wasn't until she got into more of her adult years that it became severe. Okay, I have cancer and this is a problem, and it is, a illness that once it's here, and it's tough because it takes over an individual so much. So let me get back to when my mom found out that she had cancer. So at the age of 19, she found out that she had leukemia. She had me at 17, and I believe that's when she started to realize the certain differences in her cycle. So my mother moved to North Carolina from New Jersey to go to school. She went to college at Wake Forest University, where my grandfather, he was living. My grandfather, he moved from New Jersey to go to Winston-Salem State and stayed. So she kind of followed in his footsteps and went down to Winston-Salem as well. So I remember growing up in Winston-Salem, but I also remember having to leave. This was, I believe, 2004, and my mom just told us that told me, it was just always me, I'm the only child, that I had to go. We were moving back up to New Jersey with my grandmother, and I grew up more so in Winston. My younger years, I want to say, how old was I? I want to say any age between 1 and 7, 8, because I moved back to New Jersey from North Carolina at the age, second grade. So I believe I was 8. So my mom never told me why we were moving back up. It wasn't later that I found out we moved back up because her cancer had went away, and then it came back, and it came back stronger. And when it came back, it was drastic, more so like it could have been life-changing for her. So my mom took the steps to going ahead and moving back home where her mother was, and that's my nanny that a lot of people know of, which is my grandma, her mother, which was well, she's the only child, and I'm also my mom's only child. So we moved back up to Trenton. This is 08, if I'm not mistaken. I'm in the 2nd grade. We moved back to Trenton, and just life is crazy. You know, I still don't know why we moved up, because I'm like, sheesh, North Carolina was the perfect place. You know, I'm a child. It's the perfect place to raise your kid. I had a really good school. I had really good friends. I was just livid that I had to move and, you know, pretty much start all over. My mom never really showed signs of being ill until, excuse me, that's my dog. Puma is having fun with her new covers, child. But my mom didn't really show signs of her illness until it was, I want to say the year of her passing, which was 2011. So I remember that year, my mother started to show signs physically. It started off with her hair. Her hair was like really thin, and I couldn't understand why, because she had really nice hair always that I recall, and it was really full. We always went to the Dominican salons to get our hair blew out, and I remember one blowout she had, it was just like super thin, like I can see her scalp thin. But, you know, I didn't think nothing of it. I did ask her, and I remember, I think she said, like, you know, her hair was just thinning. So I'm like, okay, all right, it happens. And I went from there. Then it started to be things that people started to realize. I had a homegirl at the time who did hair, and my mom went to go get her hair done from her, and she called me and was like, Capri, is your mom okay? And I was just like, you know, like, what do you mean? Yeah, she's fine. She was like, no. She kept like going to sleep, like nodding off in a chair, and I'm like, you know, like, I don't know. All right, okay. Then she took me and a neighbor, which was a friend of mine, we're still good friends, to like a Funplex. It's a place like a David Buster's or like a arcade type of ordeal. We were just starting to do a lot of things, and I believe that's because she knew that, you know, she didn't really have long, but she didn't really tell anybody that. She, especially me or my grandma, because she didn't want us to live differently. That's what I was told. So, boom. We go to Funplex, and on the way there and on the way back, the driving was just, it was not it. We were about to hit people from the back, and I'm just like, what is going on? The whole time, my mom is medicated from, what is the medicine? Morphine. So she's trying to take us out, and it's just like, you know, it's just very discombobulated. When we're there at the place, she kind of like let us do our own thing, and she stayed back and kind of sat like in this area, and me and my friend at the time, we did our thing. But yeah, I just remember that ride going back, you know, I had to keep saying like, Mom, wake up, or, you know, tapping her, like, you know, I didn't want, after a certain time, I'm like, okay, if I keep tapping her, like, if I show that I'm scared, she's going to be frightened. So, you know, I would just tap her, you know, like, because I couldn't drive at the moment. I was only 15 years old. So that's when I started to realize certain signs. And then I had mentioned to a friend of mine that was in high school, like, I think something's going wrong. Like, something is wrong with my mother. She's showing some irrational behavior that I'm not really used to. And that's where I kind of like started to dig deeper. She started to get these transfusions. At the time, I still had no clue what was going on. I'm just thinking my mother's going to the hospital. Not really just to go. I knew it was something wrong. I was just more so in like a in denial sense. And I didn't really find out that my mother had cancer until, I want to say, she lost all her hair, and this was about 3 months before she was deceased. This was actually while she was in hospice, and she was in hospice home. So I'm starting to see all of these things, like her body to deteriorate while, you know, she's home. And it was just like the craziest thing. And then that's when I realized, like, yeah, my mom's sick. But never did she tell me that she was sick. I remember it was one night I was sitting at the end of her bed. I had came and made sure she was okay. She would always be really tired from, I believe, you know, the medication that she was prescribed to make her not feel pain. So I remember just going to her room, and I was just sitting at the end of the bed, and you could tell she was like trying to tell me. It was like she was always trying to tell me that she was sick and kind of couldn't face it, or was scared to, or, you know, just really couldn't think to do it. I really don't know what the case was, but she had asked me while I was sitting down on the floor at the end of her bed, like, you know, Capri, are you scared? And I remember just sitting there, and I just shook my head because I was terrified. And then she just cried a little bit, but then she went back to sleep. And that's really like one of the moments that I remember, because I was terrified. And, you know, I didn't really want to tell her that because she was terrified. I believe she was more afraid that I, you know, than I was. So it was just like really, really, really hard at that moment, just not knowing what was going on. I was like, you know, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I was still trying to be a child, still do teenage things with my friends. I remember I had went to a homecoming, my high school homecoming, and I had got called because they thought that my mother had passed away then, but she didn't. I think she had passed like a couple days afterwards. But, you know, it was just really hard for me growing up to have to deal with that. But ways that I cope now, I'm 26 for one. Growing up without my mother, it was definitely difficult. I started doing things like, you know, I didn't have the proper guidance. I had my grandmother, but she too was going through her own thing because this is also her only child, and, you know, she just was experiencing her own grief. So, you know, I started to venture out, started to do different things that I probably didn't used to do before, drinking, partying, and, you know, I was never really big on smoking weed until I got to college. So that wasn't really like a problem that I had, but definitely drinking, partying. I stayed out, just like I lived really fast at the age of 16, 15 years old. And I think ways that I manage to cope now is just knowing that I wanted to be better, and knowing that my mother wanted me to be better. The things that I was doing, I knew they weren't things that were tolerated. I remember little moments, like I would go and sleep in my mom's room, and I'll have like these vivid dreams of her coming to me, like, you know, telling me about myself, like as if she was in the actual spirit, so, or, you know, in her body. And I would just be like, sheesh, like, you know, she had her ways of trying to tell me how to live better, to guide me more so, even though she was not there in the physical. So it was ways of that. My mom had a legacy. My mom was very smart. Even being sick, she went back to school to get her master's in medical coding. So it was just like, nah, I gotta step it up a notch. It was very hard. It's still hard. But being on a journey to understand that I had to get better really was ideal for me. Like I started to realize a lot of trouble in my relationships due to, you know, the loss of my mother. And that was another thing that, you know, who doesn't want to have somebody who wants to be troublesome all the time. So that was another thing. I just really fell back from always being the center of attention for not the right things. And, you know, it just starts to not feel good. And I knew it was not me. And being that I am doing so much better now, you know, my life aligns. My mother, I feel like, has a better way for me to be guided because I have a clear path. So I feel more connected, And that's another way and another reason why I try to do the best that I can in life. You know, we're human, so it's going to be times where we, you know, fall short, but you pick it back up and understand that we do have ancestors aligned to help us get right back to the path that we need to in order to be where they are. So yeah, a lot of people say, oh, I couldn't do it. I feel like I couldn't do it, you know, like it couldn't be me. And that's something that I always try to stay away from. A phrase that I try to stay away from, because you never know. Like, life will humble you up so quickly. I used to be so spoiled. Like, I was the only child, and when I say spoiled, my mom, she was a dresser, so I was like a little monster created on the level. You know, I love labels. I love getting fly, and this was me very young. So with that, you know, I was always, can I get? Can I have? And never really took the time out to see really what my mom had going on. As far as her being sick, I was really like kind of very close to my grandma too. When we moved back to to New Jersey from North Carolina, like I was super close with my grandma, being that, you know, I didn't really grow up with her at the ages that I could remember, but we did live with her before my mom went to college, but I did not remember that. So when we moved back up, my grandma was just like everything. My grandma is still everything. My nanny, people know her as, and I'm very grateful to have her. You know, I feel like we both pick up the pieces for one another. Having her has definitely been a big help to help me get through whatever it is that I have been going through, my feelings. You know, we have really been there for one another. It was really rocky at first because, you know, we were the closest things to one another that have experienced, you know, a certain trauma. So I'm grateful. I'm in such a better space now. It helps me get things off my chest, and it helps me even really feel good to talk about this with the public, because there used to be a time where I couldn't even face speaking on it. Like, I would either crack up, try to avoid the conversation, but this just goes to show my growth and how understanding I am with life and how it has been brought upon me. And I can't stop, and I won't stop. Just for those that are out there that have faced the same situation or facing the same situation, and I, God forbid, because I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but just know that you can reach out. I have my social media sites listed. But I am here. Like, I really wish I had somebody to speak to at the moment that could understand. I had an older cousin of mine that had lost both of his parents, and he was really helpful. Like, we're super close to this day. Me and his kids are like, I love them to death, but I needed somebody like that to help me understand, like, really what was going on, and like, what is happening. So I want to be that person for somebody else. That is one of the reasons why I made this video, and just to be a listening ear, you know, just to show somebody that we're human. We're going to go through the ropes. We're going to go through grief. We're going to go through death. It's a part of life. And we do not have to be standoffish about it, because we all have to go through it one day. But I am here to show my experience, to tell the world and my subscribers about my experience with losing my parent.